welcome to episode 1 of Deena and Javen at the Regent Street. We're so excited. We've been talking about this forever, and here we are.
Yes, we are going to be coming to you once a month to talk about the arts in Salt Lake City. We're going to focus on what's happening here at the Regent Street and around this area, but we want to talk to everybody. We want to talk to actors. We want to talk to visual artists, dancers, filmmakers. We want to talk about what's happening in the arts in this town.
A lot of conversations with super cool and interesting people. Today, we can't wait to sit down and chat with beloved actress here in town, Katherine Atwood. She has got some amazing stories, such a rich career. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to watch through the whole thing because we have some hot topics coming up, right? So along with Katherine, what else?
Yeah, we're going to talk about what happened right here at the Regent Street with the Utah Repertory Theater Company and their production of American Psycho. We're not going to go into a lot of detail about the actual production itself, but what I'm interested in is the conversation that came up after that, and we're going to talk about that later on in the episode today.
So it's going to get good. But first, I think that we should tell our audience a little bit more about who we are. So I want to introduce you guys to Javen Tanner. Okay, Javen likes long walks on the beach, horseback riding, pina coladas, and getting caught in the rain. His spirit animal is Elsa, and here to perform a rousing rendition of Let It Go is Javen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, do it.
That was it.
Okay, just kidding.
Let it go.
Okay, here's...
Let it go.
Let it go. Deena, let it go. But he really does love Elsa.
It's an important... We'll talk about it.
It's a thing. You'll hear more. Okay, Javen Tanner holds an MFA in acting from the Old Globe Theater, where he was awarded the Craig Knoll Fellowship. In New York, Javen worked as an associate artistic director of Handcart Ensemble, a theater company specializing in verse drama. Javen is a member of Actors Equity Association and the Screen Actors Guild. He was awarded Best Actor in a feature film at the 2007 New York Independent Film Festival. He is the artistic director of the Sting and Honey Company, for which he has directed critically acclaimed productions of Waiting for Godot, The Winter's Tale, Hedda Gabler, and Happy Days, among others. Javen has taught acting at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, Brigham Young University, and is currently the Dean of Arts at the Waterford School. Javen's poems have appeared in magazines and journals throughout the country, and his poetry collection, The God Mask, was published in 2018.
Ooh. Thank you, Deena.
You're so accomplished. High five.
I'm so accomplished. That's I live for that. A Utah native, Deena is a graduate of the Atlantic Theater Company Acting School in New York City. During her time in New York, Deena was chosen to perform for David Mamet, was cast in an off-Broadway children's musical at the Atlantic after graduation. She's a proud member of Actors Equity, and local highlights include Hedda in Hedda Gabler and Blanche in A Streetcar Named Desire. She's performed at Salt Lake Acting Company, Pioneer Theater Company, and Pygmalion, and she is an associate artist for Sting and Honey Company. Deena has had a successful comedic YouTube channel, which led to opportunities such as national social media campaigns, and ultimately landed her in local TV. By day, she's a TV host for Good Things Utah and ABC4. When she's not at the station, you can find her on stage or adventuring with her little son, Charlie, which is always the highlight of her day. Now, what you may not know about Deena...
I'm nervous.
Deena has a winter home in Laverkin, Utah, where the locals call her La Deena.
Oh my gosh, I should have known this is what you were going to say.
Yeah, and don't you have like an enclosed front yard where you keep an alpaca named Unicorn?
Yeah, I do, but it's not just one, it's a family of alpacas. I believe there are at least 243 at the moment.
Yeah. All named Unicorn.
Yeah.
All of them.
That way I don't have to worry about telling them all apart, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100% true. Right. So there you go. A little bit about us.
That's us.
Yeah.
That's who
Did you, unless you had any more?
I'm done.
Did I cut you off?
No,
good.
You didn't.
Well done.
No.
Well done. A huge congratulations to Sting and Honey for being made residents here at the Black Box.
Yes, we are excited to be here. We're excited to live in this space. We've been here for about 3 years now, but the residency was made official this past summer. So we just love it. We love it here. And I also wanted to take a minute to recognize the new residents of the space, Utah Classical Guitar and Jack's Theater Company, a children's theater company. We will occasionally be talking about what they're doing, just so everybody knows what's going on here at the Regent Street. And we will talk about the Eccles.
Yeah, they have a great season coming up. It really is one of those seasons where I want to see everything. Fiddler on the Roof, The Illusionists, Dear Evan Hansen, brace yourself, Frozen, and Anastasia.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We've both been in Fiddler on the Roof, so we'll see if they're as good as us.
Zeidel
Perchik.
will be the
When
judge.
I was young and the world was still fresh with dew on it.
It's all downhill from there. It's just all downhill. What have you been out and about seeing lately, theater-wise?
Yeah, I've seen some cool stuff. So I saw Pinnacle's Mauritius, which is a really wonderful play, and they did such a great job. Jared Larkin directed it. I enjoyed it very much. Sunny Jaglati was in the main role. I have worked with her in Women of Trachis. She just did wonderfully. So great show with Pinnacle. And then I saw Mary Stewart at Pioneer with our great friends Colleen Baum and Robert Scott Smith, who we hope to talk to on our shows someday.
Yep.
But yeah, so really enjoyed that. Beautiful, beautiful costumes.
I bet.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. What about you?
I saw Pete the Cat with Salt Lake Acting Company, and I took Charlie. It's the second time I've taken him to a children's show there. It was so great. That hour seriously flew by, and even as an adult, I was like, I want to see it again. It was so fun. And he's a wiggly little guy. He was just glued to the stage.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm also really interested in what Plan B is doing with Singing to the Brine Shrimp.
Right, I haven't seen that.
So, Puppets in the City, I interviewed Shelby, she's the owner for Channel 4, and she took me into her puppet studio, showed me how they're made, told me the whole history of how she got into puppeteering, and so this particular production is going to use her puppet. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That'd be great. We got to see that.
What about the Sting and Honey season? What are you doing right now? What's coming up, huh?
So we have such an exciting season coming up. It's our biggest season so far. So we're going to start out in the spring with Peter Shaffer's Black Comedy, which is a British farce. It's my favorite British farce. Very funny. So come and see that in this spring, coming up very soon, actually. And then we are going to do a one-act play called Sentinel, which is not a British farce. It's a sad play.
Something that you have been working on.
This is a play that I've written. Be doing that play with the magnificent Roger Dunbar. And then in the summer, we'll have our regular summer family show. We're going to do Sleeping Beauty's Dream this year, which is a wonderful piece. I love working on it, and I'm excited to bring that to the Regent Street space. And then this fall, we're doing Chekhov's The Seagull, which for me is a play that I have always loved since I saw it for the first time back in 1997, and bringing that same script into this space, and I just very much look forward to that.
I'm so excited. What a season. Oh, okay. So you're going to want to keep an eye, stay tuned as those dates, are being released. You can find out where to get your tickets, and it's a good one. She really needs no introduction. We all know and love her. It's our Katherine Atwood. Thank you so much for being here and doing this first episode with us today.
Well, thank you, Deena. It is such a pleasure to be here with two of my favorite people.
Now let's tell everybody how the three of us met, how this came to be.
You tell.
She's the guest, but I'll tell the story. Because I'm the one that was sitting in the room. Both of them came to audition for The Winter's Tale. It was the second production that Sting and Honey did.
In 2012.
Yeah.
Right.
And both of them came in and just knocked us out. And the rest is history.
I remember coming to the callback, and Deena and I greeted each other with joy, of course, because we'd always wanted to work together. I believe that was our first time. And Javen's face lit up, and he said, "You two know each other?" Because, of course, chemistry is very important in theater, as in life. And yes, the rest is history.
And I love any time I get to share the stage with you and do one of your shows. So
Yes, yes. Mutual Admiration Society all the way around here.
you have so many stories, and I want to get to as much as we possibly can. Javen, where should we start?
Tell us about pre-Utah.
Yeah.
Before you came to, you're not from Utah. Tell us
Right.
about some of your experience as an actress before Utah.
I have been here now. I was thinking about it as I was waiting to come on. I've been here more than 20 years, about 23 years now. I still don't think that in this culture that makes me an official Utahn, but I feel close. You know, I actually love it here. But I grew up in Massachusetts, which is a place I also love and miss very much, in an old house built in 1699, and was educated there, and then eventually found my way to California, where I worked with a group of Oxford scholars on Shakespeare, and then I married one of them. And so it gave me an opportunity to live and work in England. And one of the things we did, we had an opportunity to tour the state of Florida, because my former husband was asked to write a guidebook for Europeans about Florida. So I took the kids out of school, we toured Florida, we fell in love with a place called Key West, which is quite well known. But before it got filled with t-shirt shops, it was filled with artists, and it had a great little theater scene, because really, the fact that Tennessee Williams lived there was a pretty big deal.
Okay. You have to tell us the story about Tennessee Williams.
It was an amazing thing. First of all, there was a big theater down there called the Tennessee Williams Fine Arts Center that I had an opportunity to. I had a day job there as well as a night job, because you guys know how that goes. And so I was doing public relations there as well as acting. But before I worked at the Tennessee Williams Fine Arts Center, there's a theater down there called the Waterfront Playhouse. They were doing, I got cast as Nina. I was much younger than Nina in The Seagull. And that happens to be Tennessee Williams' favorite play.
Of course it is. Of course it is. He even wrote a version of it, by the way.
And as you know, Sting and Honey is doing it this fall. But anyway, I was playing Nina in that production. I had really curly hair at the time, which is relevant because Tennessee Williams was in the audience. We did know that he was there, so we weren't nervous at all. But he came backstage afterward, which we actually didn't expect. We figured he would just take right off, but he did not. He came backstage, and he came up to me and touched my curly hair, and he said, "Curly Nina." And he said, "Wonderful job, you are a gifted child." I was weak at the knees and tried not to make a complete fool out of myself. I was so honored. But shortly thereafter, they were casting his play, Vieux Carré, which is a wonderful play. If you've never read it, please do. It's a wonderful Tennessee Williams play about a New England spinster, as they used to call them in those days, an unmarried New England woman who moves to New Orleans for kind of a last grasp at life and takes up with a strip joint barker named Ty.
Like you do.
And I got to play that character of Jane. We rehearsed in his backyard, and he had parrots, and he had a couple of bulldogs.
He had parrots?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes. And just...
What was he like? How would you describe
Oh, gosh. Tennessee Williams was the consummate Southern gentleman with more than a touch of hedonism attached to him.
Best description ever.
That's how you describe his plays.
He often showed up in a linen suit, you know, with a little straw hat wherever he went. And I have to tell you, oh my gosh, this is my favorite story about Tennessee Williams. That Fine Arts Center that I talked about had a grand opening, and a touring company playing Twelfth Night came through, and it was a concept production. And you guys know all about these. And everyone was dressed in white, and the set was white, and it was not that great. But Tennessee, had to show up because this is his theater. It's named after him. He shows up with his entourage, and he really was unhappy with the production. But he didn't want to be an embarrassment and walk out because everyone knew he was there. So he feigned a heart attack.
No
He
way.
feigned a heart attack and clued his entourage in, and they all swept him off. And he said, "Well, it would have been very embarrassing to leave." But yeah.
I'm going to steal that. I'm going to do that at some point.
Yes. We all have
Katherine,
felt that, right?
You've done so much through the years. You've toured, you've performed everywhere. You're preparing for your next role, which is taking you to southern Utah. What's that all about?
Oh my gosh. Well, this was an interesting thing. I got a message from this man on Facebook who I didn't know. And I remember saying to my husband, "Oh, there's some guy trying to contact me on Facebook." And well, what it was he was familiar with me through some other folks. We'd never worked together, but he'd heard about me and invited me to come down and audition for a play called The End of the Horizon about Everett Ruis. There's been an entire mythology built up around Everett Ruis here in Utah. He, in 1934, disappeared into the southern Utah wilderness. He was a young man from LA who fell in love with southern Utah. And he had come several times, always traveled by himself, usually with a couple of burros, carrying his stuff. He slept out. He is recognized because he was a wonderful writer, left behind beautiful letters and poems and beautiful artwork. He was a painter, did block prints and that kind of thing. And so I auditioned for the role of his mother. Stella, as it happens, is her name. And it was a great experience. They also filmed the audition because they're making a documentary about the making of the play. And we're going to Escalante for a couple of days where they're doing the Everett Ruis Festival. The rest of the time we're playing at a place called the Kayenta Arts Center, I believe it's called, Javen. You're familiar with that.
And when does this run?
This is in October.
Okay.
I'm moving down there for the month of September, and we'll be playing the first couple of weeks in October. They've got a lovely little arts community that's building up just outside St. George near Snow Canyon in a place called Ivans. And this Kayenta Arts Village is growing
beautiful.
up. Oh, it's beautiful.
But getting cast in this role has also sparked some other thoughts and a discussion for you, right?
Well, I was so surprised to be contacted out of the blue like that. It's always nice as an actor to be recognized, as you know, but, we're not in New York City. This is Utah. Opportunities are few and far between, and I'm 68 years old, and there is ageism in theater, as in the entire culture. And theater is a reflection, of course, of the culture. And I don't say that everyone does this, but there is definitely a tendency to, for example, cast younger. Oh, we need a 70-year-old for this part, but let's cast so-and-so who's 50, we could age her a little. And I think that there's a lack of respect, and I want to, I'm always laughing with my grandchildren about the okay boomer thing, and I get it, we're not perfect, we've probably done a lot to mess up the planet, that kind of thing, but on a more serious note, there's a lack of respect and veneration that you see in other societies for people with experience, for people with age. There was a wonderful article recently in the New York Times about this with several older actresses, Estelle Parsons being one of them, talking about the problem that the parts are so few and far between, and a lot of times this is a playwriting problem.
Sure.
And so,
Javen, could you speak to the subject of ageism coming from a producer, director, casting standpoint?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. one of the things I think that producers, directors are afraid of, and perhaps, without merit, are afraid, is the actor who is actually 70, who is actually 80, going to be able to handle their lines, right? So I've had experience with that. We did a production of Oedipus at Colonus, where we experienced that with our Oedipus.
Right.
So, I mean, that might be happening, but what do you think?
It's an interesting dilemma, and I'm sure that that's a true thing, but it also, it can be true with younger actors as well, and we've all experienced that. But I think that it's something that should be just addressed head on with the person you're casting. And maybe, I worked with a gentleman who had to drop out of a Harold Pinter play a few years ago because of this very reason. And so it is real. But there's also wonderful actors who can remember.
Well, thank you for being so
Thank you.
open and honest. An actor who tells their age, I mean, what? Thank you. And I think that's an important, discussion to spark and get everybody thinking about it. We love you so much.
Thank you.
And we're just so grateful for The Winter's Tale that brought us all together. And there's another actor from the show sitting out in the audience right
Yes.
now.
Oh.
It's just the
Make him come up
Winter's
for a sec.
Tale reunion today.
Katherine, thank you so much for joining us today. And River, we love you.
All right. Thank you, Katherine Atwood. Thank you for visiting us and being on the first episode of our show. We love you
so much.
Wonderful to have you with us today. Now, most of the time we want to spend time talking about what's happening around Salt Lake City, but this first episode we're going to talk a little bit more about ourselves because we like to. And
It's our favorite pastime.
Yeah, Deena's funny. She's very funny. This is the whole
It's true.
The whole reason we were doing this.
You'll get to know this about me. If you don't already, congratulations.
So many of you know that we asked you for questions. Send us questions, we'll answer them. Now, we got a lot of questions.
We
A
did,
lot.
and really good ones.
Yeah, and some stupid ones. But mostly
True.
really good ones.
He's not wrong.
Now, we can't answer them all on this, but we're going to answer a few of them today, and then we'll answer more of the ones that were sent to us on Instagram and Facebook, social media, so look for that. But we're going to start today with a few of the questions that you sent to us. And I'm going to begin with a question for Deena.
Okay.
All right. First question, Deena. Being a professional performer, why do you think art and entertainment is important for society?
Okay, hold on. Gotta get comfortable. I think this is so beautiful, and there's so much to say about it. I think that not just for society, but for humanity, nothing connects us more than art, more than theater. At least that's how I feel. When I am on stage and really in the moment, or when I'm in the audience and experiencing something so beautiful, I feel myself dissipate into the whole of that experience in that moment. And we're all just experiencing the same thing. There's a study out that talks with a doctor who says your hearts synchronize when you're on stage together or when you're in the audience together, even through intermission as you're chatting about it. And I think there's so much truth to that. It's so uniting. I also think that it's so sacred to be a part of stories that have been preserved through years, right? Through decades. That's why they're classics. They still hold up because we're connecting to something in that story, in a character, and that reminds us that we're not alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. For me, the reason we do theater is we recognize that person on stage as us.
Yeah.
It tells us that we are alive.
Yes.
I love it.
And we're all so much more alike than we think.
Yeah.
Okay, question for you.
All right.
Do you get annoyed when people misinterpret your poems?
No, I don't. I don't get annoyed with it at all. I had a composer put one of my poems to music a few years back. And, we were talking on the phone one day, and he was telling me all that he thought that the poem meant. The poem was written when my dad was in the hospital, and he was very sick, and I thought we were going to lose him. And so this was about losing my dad. And he is on the phone, this composer's on the phone with me talking to me about how sexual this poem is. And I was like,
Wow.
And
Wow.
there was nothing, in the writing of it that was like that. But it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all, because when you create something like that and you send it out there, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the person who's experiencing it, and that's what we do, right? We don't make things for ourselves. We make art to give it away.
I love that. And then it's something useful for them based on where they are in their own journey.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, question 2 for Deena. When did you know you wanted to be an actor?
Oh, okay. So I grew up performing. I think my first performance ever, I was like 5 years old, and I was a butterfly. And I sang a song about turning into a butterfly from a caterpillar and something about milkweed, like in a spandex butterfly costume. So I was always performing in some way, singing and dancing, but I didn't know that it's what I wanted to do until I think my junior year of high school. And what I really fell in love with, almost before I fell in love with the craft itself, was the sense of community. It blew my mind to walk into this whole new world and then find what I loved about being on stage. So yeah, that happened junior year of high school in a school play.
Excellent. Awesome.
All right, for you, have you ever walked out of a propaganda play? If you were asked to write one for a lot of money, would you? A lot of money. Let me give you a number. Let's say for the low price of $2 million.
Okay, so have I ever walked out of a propaganda play? I don't think I have. I can't remember doing that. It would be silly, because most plays are propaganda plays, and I would be walking out of every play I saw. So no, I don't. I generally don't walk out of plays, even if I hate them. Would I write?
Fake a heart attack.
I would definitely fake a heart attack, for sure. Would I write a propaganda play for a lot of money? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would sell out my principles like that for $2 million, like that.
We all have a price.
Oh,
$2,000.
By the way.
Couple burritos.
By the way, my price is much lower than $2 million. Much, much lower. You need a propaganda play?
He's your guy.
I'm your guy.
I love it. Whose turn is it?
Okay, it's
my turn. Your turn.
Okay. If you could choose any moment in your life to freeze so you could step outside of yourself and look around to see from all angles, what would it be?
This is the coolest question.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this last night, and you know what it would be? It would be the moment that I was going into labor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that, well, having Charlie changed my entire life. I feel like it's a death of who you were prior, and you're now this new person. It gives you a new lens to see the world with. It shifts your priorities into, for me, what seemed like just the right places, like where it was supposed to be. Things had the right level of importance. And he is the love of my life, my favorite human being. People tell you you're gonna love your kid more than you love anyone, and I was like, okay, I'm sure that's true, but I didn't understand that it's a whole different type of love that you don't even know exists until you become a parent. So I wish there was a moment maybe that I could have, taken a grand look at what was coming and who he was, who was about to enter my life, and all the ways it was going to change so drastically on that day.
Love it. That's awesome.
Ooh, this one is so good. Okay, what would you say your Sisyphean rock is made of? Has it always been made of that, or is it something you've picked up along the way?
Okay, I love this question, and we should say here, as we were talking about which questions we chose just before the show, the last question that got asked and this one were asked by the same person who was also in The Winter's Tale all those years ago, Daniel Fenton Anderson.
Nailing it with these questions,
We
man.
love you. So the Sisyphean Rock, I've been thinking about this.
Yes.
Right? It's such a great question. What is your Sisyphean Rock made of? For those of you who might not know what that is,
Don't feel bad, I had him explain it to me too.
yeah, Greek mythology, Sisyphus was condemned. He outsmarted the gods, and so as a punishment, he had to push a rock up a hill. got to the top of the hill, it rolls back down. He has to push it back up the hill for eternity, right? So
That's been my last 2 years of my life.
Yeah, that's
another story.
in the last 45 years. No. So, I love this question. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I do think it changes over the years, like what that rock consists of. And I think right now, if I'm, about the last little while in my life, I think that my Sisyphean rock consists mainly of blueberries and sadness. That was supposed to be funny.
I feel like sadness. About blueberries?
Hey, everything that I eat right now has blueberries in it. Everything.
For real?
Absolutely.
Do you like the texture of a blueberry?
I love a blueberry.
All right.
Blueberries are good.
The heart wants what it wants.
I put them in not the cherries. I put them in my Cheerios. Not Cheerios, but Cheerios.
Add some cherries next time.
I put them in my salads.
Okay, in a salad I like it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So blueberries and sadness. That's my Sisyphean rock. Daniel, thanks for bringing it up.
I feel like
Thank
it's
you.
also the name of a band. It'd make a good band name, Blueberries and Sadness.
I have so many band names. So many band names. This is the year of rock and roll for me. So yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
What's
next question.
my final question?
Well, we got lots of questions. The two of us got lots of questions about our hair. And
We
so
did, like a lot,
Yeah.
especially Javen.
So we decided we would share some of these questions. And so my question for you, Deena, is do you use a special hair growth serum?
Nope. You know what? I've just left my hair alone. I haven't done anything to it in 2 years. I haven't dyed it, and I've only had 2 itty-bitty trims. Now, your stylist might tell you to go and trim regularly, so, I don't know that that's the best way to go, but if you want to be a Rapunzel, mermaid hippie, then you just don't touch it. That's my trick. I didn't do anything to it.
Nice.
Your amazing head of hair, how long does it take you to do your hair, was your last question.
My question, do my hair, it doesn't take me any time at all. I put this, so at the salon, they gave
Where
me,
they feed you a blueberry?
Yes. They gave me this product, which I love, and I just run my fingers through it, and that's it.
Easy.
That's all I do.
We should do styling tutorials. We have so much to say on the subject.
We will. We will.
You've been warned. So keep the questions coming, whether it's about theater or whatever you want to talk about,
Anything.
or hair. Okay.
Keep sending us questions.
Yep. What he said.
Yeah.
Good hair.
Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about this space for a minute here. This is the Regent Street. This is where we live. This is where Sting and Honey is a resident. And this is also where there was a recent controversy in the theater community. Now, you may be aware that a couple of months ago, Utah Rep was in here. They were doing a production of American Psycho, and it turned into a bit of a fiasco. The show was shut down, the cast walked out, and it's been sort of the talk of the theater community, and it happened right here. Now, I know that this is not my theater, but I think of it as my theater. And so things that happen in here matter to me a lot. But what I'd like to talk about today, more than what actually happened, is the conversation that followed. So since this happened, since the actors and designers and technicians were unhappy with the experience, walked out, the the theater company itself dissolved, there's been this conversation now about standards among theater companies. And there have been meetings about this where theater companies have come together, theater professionals have come together to talk about how does an actor, how does a designer, how does a technician know what they're getting into when they get involved with a particular production or a particular theater company. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. What it has brought up is this idea of an artist's bill of rights. And that brings a lot to mind for me. I went to the last meeting, which I really enjoyed. I loved listening to the different things that people had to say about this. A lot of concerns and a lot of expectations, particularly for young actors going into a theater company that is non-union often, right? So a lot of these young actors are coming in and they are not union actors, so they're not protected by union rules. So what protections do they have? Now, you're union, Deena. I'm union. We've been around in the theater world for a bit longer. But when you get cast in a show, what are your expectations of the experience?
Well, you know, as we've been talking about this, I was kind of going back and taking inventory and what my experience has been and trying to figure out those times when I did feel uncomfortable or I did feel unsafe. And as I look back, I'm really lucky. I don't have a lot of those instances, but there are a couple, and they happened when I was kind of starting out, being worked too much, not following the union schedule and sticking to those hours, too many shows in a day, tech rehearsals that went on way too long just to have a quick turnaround for the next full day of more tech, you know, not having those union breaks, not having that number of hours in between. And so for me, joining the union has really protected me. And I do think our professional companies, for the most part, my experiences have been positive. I think it's been the occasional, you know, actor who comes into the mix that you could have an issue with. But again, this is just my own personal experience. It's such a different time right now with, like you're saying, the younger up-and-coming actors. I mean, there's social media, there's call-out culture, which has its pros and cons. But there's a lot of places we can be having this discussion, and everybody can chime in, and they can organize these meetings and, you know, get their voices heard in a different way than we could 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yes, absolutely. What you were talking about, you know, rehearsals going on too long, not knowing the schedule, these were a lot of the concerns that I'm hearing that I heard in this meeting that I went to. These are a lot of the concerns that were connected with Utah Rep. What's the schedule? What are we doing? You know, is this safe to walk on the? You know, I mean, a lot of those issues were some of the big issues. Just simple things like, when are we taking a break? How long are we rehearsing? Where are we rehearsing? You know, just kind of organizational things. But it is an interesting question because, you know, I have to say that while I think all of those concerns are important and legitimate and need to be talked about, I am a little bit skeptical every time a bunch of like-minded people get together with an enthusiasm for rules. That puts me, makes me a little uneasy, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the where you are as a theater company. So, you know, you have Pioneer Theater Company, which, you know, has lots of money, and it's a union house, and they can provide all of these different things. Slack can provide a lot. Plan B can provide a lot of things that others can't, simply because of what they have, right? I can't provide what Pioneer can provide, and that includes, you know, things. You know, some of the organizational stuff is done by money, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these younger companies, like, you know, who are a bunch of college kids getting together, and they're like, our company is named this.
Yeah.
And that's what their company is. They can't provide insurance. They can't provide any of that, you know. And so my thought is that while this is a very important conversation to have, we have to be careful about making everyone sort of, you know, sign on to this list of rules, because we want that play in the system. We want there to be upstarts who are coming and are able to do things in a loose way. But it's the conversation that's important, right? What is expected when we get together and we create a piece of theater together? How does that work? It matters a great deal to me, you know. And we talk about each other, don't we? We talk about it. And I think you're right, as I think about the different companies, Pinnacle, you know, Pygmalion, Plan B, you know, Sackerson, these companies that are around here, these are people who care a great deal about the experience that their actors are having.
Yeah, agreed. I think another factor that comes into play is that when you're starting out, you are more willing to sacrifice maybe your own safety or getting paid or being treated well because you want to be on stage or performing, and it's the role that you want, or it's this show that you want to do so bad that you're willing to do it even though you might have heard that that's not the best business or company to be working for. They might not treat you the best, or it's going to be all your time and energy and you're not going to get paid for that. And I think sometimes, when you're young, you're just willing to do whatever it takes to experience that role. So you say, that's fine, I don't need to be paid, I don't need to take breaks, and that's where you get into those uncomfortable situations, unsafe situations, and it's not worth it. You're not going to end up having a joyful experience anyway.
And this is where this conversation is so important, right? Because now if we have this everybody knows we're having this conversation in the theater community. And it's Dave Mortensen, who's been a big part of this, so thank you, Dave. A place where you can go to talk about the experiences that you're having at different places. But the other side to what you brought up is that ability to say as a young actor, I am okay to do this and not get paid, that's important, right? That's a question of value for value, right? I am okay to, it's okay with me if we don't take all the breaks, right? And, by the way, we're rehearsing in the park. You know what I mean? I mean, that is part of the ability to do theater outside of the bounds of a place like this, right? To create something that might not be able to be created by you in your particular place in life right now.
Yeah.
So there, it's a double. There's two ways of seeing it. There's the real good of it, and then there are the risks.
Yeah.
And you have to decide what you're willing to do.
Right, and knowing that within yourself and having those firm boundaries within yourself. And so it's nice when theater companies are really upfront with what the expectations are so that you can make that empowered decision.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's a small community and word gets out and people talk. So do your research, and at least we are all talking so we can warn each other, but also support each other.
Support each other, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, that's it for episode 1. I mean, we could go on, but we got to wrap this up, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
We did it. Yes. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
Facebook and Instagram. Follow us.